Okay, what's going on, guys? So this is now time for the tractor video all the tractor people that watch my channel have been waiting for, and that is adding ballast to the back of my tractor. Why do you want to add ballast? I'll explain that. Hang tight, I'll be right back. All right, so ballast is essentially the weight that you add to counteract other weight. So right now, with the front bucket full, the back gets really light, and I can actually fill it up, move it around. I've done it several times and the back stays on the ground, but I want to transfer some of the weight to the back axle from the front, and I also want to keep the back axle down. And right now the pivot point is the front axle, so I want to remove some of the forces on the front axle, and the way to do that on a tractor is to essentially fill your back tire up. Now this to me doesn't make a lot of sense. It definitely makes sense in terms of keeping the back tire on the ground, but the reason why this doesn't make a lot of sense to me is because even if you add a lot of weight to your back tires, you are still essentially adding more weight to your front axle, because when the bucket's full, the leverage point being the front axle, you're not actually transferring weight so much as creating almost like a bowing effect of weight on top of the front axle. Unless I'm missing out on something here from a physics perspective. Now, if you add weight to the back here, you are technically reducing weight off the front, because your pivot point is now, or your fulcrum is now, the rear axle, and you remove weight from the front. But just by adding water to your tires, again, it's going to keep the front from pulling the back off the ground or removing too much weight from the back. But your pivot point, or the fulcrum, basically the point at which the most energy is going to be applied in the center, is still going to be your front axle. And because of that, you in turn could be adding additional stress to your front axle by putting water in the back of your tractor tires. And again, someone correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's just the way my brain's thinking this one out. But if I do add the weight to the back here, it then turns this into my pivot point, and it will transfer weight off of the front axle. Similar to if you're towing a trailer, you know, adding water to the back tires of your pickup truck isn't going to reduce weight off of the front. It's actually going to increase it, because what will happen at that point essentially is, if I am carrying something really, really heavy, by lifting the back tires off the ground, it's actually alleviating some of the weight coming on the front axle. But if I am preventing the back tires from coming off the ground and I load up the front, I'm in essence transferring more weight to the front axle. So this is going to be to help me carry more in the bucket without the back coming off the ground, but this isn't going to be to transfer weight, if that makes sense. I'm not relieving any weight from the front, and that's just something to keep in mind. Again, if I do add ballast back here to the back, then I would be doing that, because the back tires would be that point in which the weight is rocking on. But we're going to do it anyways, because I definitely need to add some water to the back tires. We loaded the front up several times now with both dirt and sod, way, way, way heavier than it probably should have been loaded up. And what we noticed was I could still drive, but the back tires had a real hard time getting traction, and I'd have to keep it in four-wheel drive the whole time, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, like I said, I'm trying to make this thing as efficient and as productive as possible. So let's get to emptying out the air. First thing I did was I put a jack stand underneath the axle on this side. Basically raise the tire up so it's not setting on the ground anymore, so I can drain the air out of the tire. Then I got this Milton air water adapter. You basically screw it onto the valve stem, and you fill your tire full of water, and it's got a little air relief valve, because as you displace air with water, the air has to go somewhere. So you can only put so much water in before the pressure of both starts increasing, and then you have a problem. So the other thing you have to do is keep your valve stem at the very top here, because if it's at the bottom, the water is going to want to force its way out, and you can't bleed the air out because it's going to be underwater. So you want it at the top, and I only want to fill the tire to about here with water. I'd say that's probably about 75% full. Now, from a weight perspective, I absolutely do not know the volume of water that this tire will carry, but from watching other folks who have done things like this, I think combined I should have roughly 600 pounds worth of water. That's the theory. To do the tire size on this specific tire, and I'll let someone else do the calculation if they want to. They're 335, 70, 17.5, or 14-17.5 NHS tires, and that's more of your tractor size, and that's more of your automotive size. So if somebody wants to figure out the volume of water that these tires can carry at 75-80%, I would love for someone to go ahead and do that for me. But again, we are going to add water using this valve. First thing I have to do is Actually, so the valve cap right here for the Schrader valve is right there, but the whole thing will unscrew from here. So if I just unscrew this, I'm gonna let air out really, really quick. So let's go ahead and do that. It's gonna come out real quick in a second. Okay, so all the air is out of the tire. Actually found out that the hydraulic jack I had under there had a hydraulic leak, so I put a jack stand under the back now, and we are off the ground. So I have the Milton adapter right here with a little air release valve on the top. I have some quick connects in place so I can disconnect it for any reason if I have to at any point. And then I have another hose here. It's actually a spare Camco water hose. It's connected to a sump pump, which is inside of this 5-gallon bucket. I actually have seen several people do it this way. So this is the way I'm going to do it, to where I fill the bucket up with water. That way I can monitor when I get to the 5-gallon mark how much water I'm actually putting in the tire. And the good thing is I can either press this button to release the air. That builds up. Basically, as the water increases, the air pressure is going to increase, and I got to get the air out to displace it with water. And then I can disconnect this if that process is going really slow as well. So should work really well. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to fill this bucket up with water. That's going to take a while. I got a little plastic adapter in there, so you might see it spinning around there occasionally. And then once this fills with water, I'm going to go ahead and mount the camera on this thing over here. They call it a tripod. You don't see them too often on my channel. And then once this fills up, which it's actually getting pretty close to, I will connect the hose to the tire and start filling the tire with water. Don't know how long the process will take, but it sure will be interesting to see. Yeah, it's filling up super fast. Alright, so we're going to get to the top of this bucket. Alright, and what I can probably do, because I really don't need to, guess how much water is going in the tire, honestly. I'm just going to fill it up anyway, so it'll give me the ballast I need, and I'll probably just find the happy medium to where this is filling up, that's filling up. I'm going to have to shut this off occasionally so I can bleed the air out of the tire. So let's see what happens. And you can definitely hear the air going in. Okay, so there's my first problem. As easy as I thought this was going to be, I broke the tire bead. And because I broke the tire bead, I now have water spilling out the bottom. You can tell I'm definitely new at this, because I've never done this before. So I guess what I'm going to have to do is try to reseat the tire with air and then not drain it all out. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so I figured out how to reseat the tire. Really cool. I actually found several posts that said put a strap around it, tighten it down real well, it'll squeeze the bead out and then pressurize it, and that's exactly what I did. So I'm sitting at about 16.5 psi right now. I don't know if it's going to come off again whenever I try to put water in, but hopefully it won't. But we're going to try this again. I raised the tractor up just a little bit more, so there was no chance that there's pressure on the bottom, which is probably what contributed to the seal breaking. But yeah, we're going to try this again. I got my nifty cordless DeWalt air compressor here with me that allowed me to pump the volume of air in I needed to get this thing reseated. So I wasn't sure how I was going to actually reseat it, so that certainly helped. Now I'm going to try to put the valve back on. I'm going to keep it connected to the hose so I can try to save as much water from potentially coming out and possibly reseating. Okay, so we got it working this time. Got it flowing in, filling up the bucket. Sump pump is working perfectly. Yeah, hopefully it keeps working. Now you got to stop it again every now and then. Basically unplug your sump pump and go ahead and release the pressure right here. So I'm going to unplug it now. This time I'm going to try it this way without making a mess. Yeah, that works a heck of a lot better. As you can see, this thing is filling up perfectly now. Of course, I want to unplug this first. This is probably pretty dangerous because it's like soaking wet, and I'm soaking wet at this point. And keep filling up the bucket. I'm going to go ahead and unplug it. Then let the air out, plug it back in. Now that we've got kind of the pattern going, this is become a lot easier than it was. Okay, so we got it going again. What I did was, I have the quick release here, so instead of trying to bleed it off through here, which doesn't bleed off fast enough, I'm just unplugging this, and then the air blows out. So basically the air that's being displaced by water comes through here. It wasn't fast enough through here, and the water would actually backfeed, or the air would backfeed through the pump. And it's pretty bad. So now I fill it up for, I say, probably 15-20 seconds. This pump is pumping it in pretty fast too. Turn off the water, unplug this, let the air out. And you'll know when you get to the top, because water will come out of here, and that means water is right at the top of the tire. There we go. Now all I need to do is add air back to the tire and fill it up to the right PSI. And according to the tire chart, it says 30 PSI is all I need. Okay, so it went really well and really quickly once I reseeded the bead to the rim. If you lose the bead from the rim like I did and you lose that seal, it's going to slow things down dramatically, because you're going to need to reseed everything before it's going to allow air to go into it, or even water. So once you get it reseeded, you're in good shape. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and jack it up. I'm going to get the tire completely off the ground so no part of it's touching. And I'm going to see if I can maintain a little bit of pressure inside of the tire whenever I start getting water into it, just so I don't risk the chance of the bead coming loose. All right, so we're doing tire number 2, and I've come up with a better way of doing it. So I'm going to disconnect the cable right here, and I can just pull the quick connect off. Now the problem originally was losing air too fast and possibly taking the bead off. So I put this piece on right here so I could actually close off the air coming out, and as soon as I took the valve stem core out. So now I have the ability to shut off the air coming out, get the hose connected, turn the water on without having to fight the pressure coming out with pressure coming in. So I can either bleed the air off there, or I can disconnect it right here. And now all I have to do is plug it in, turn the water on, and water's going into the tire. You can see it going lower here. Anyways, we're going to keep refilling the bucket, keep letting pressure out here, get to the end, and then we'll wrap things up. This is a lot easier. So now when I'm done, I can simply, actually all I need to do is shut this off, but I want to shut the pump off because that's a sump pump and the pressure is going to keep pushing against it if I don't do this. So unplug it here, close that off, let the displaced air out, Plug that back in. Plug this back in. Turn the water on. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. I will tell you that using this connector in this fashion with both a quick connect right here and a valve was game-changing. This just completely changed the way this was done. I was able to take the valve core off and screw this on with this closed so I could mitigate how much air I lost, and then I just screwed the hose into the end of this, turn the pump on, open this up, and voila. And whenever I wanted to bleed it off, all I would do is disconnect this right here, and all the air would just bleed out of here. And I knew I was done when water would start coming out of here. It was so much simpler. I didn't have to air the tire down completely to do it this way, and I could control the flow of air exiting the tire as well as the flow of water entering. That made it just 100 times easier. This tire was done in 1/3 of the time as the other tire. So yep, that's my future setup and continued setup. Anyways, guys, I'll put a link to this stuff in the video description if you have a tractor and you were planning on doing this type of upgrade to your tractor, because I can certainly tell you I did not know what to expect going into this. I had actually a problem on that side because the hydraulic jack was leaking, so when I lifted it up, tire was off the ground. I was going to get a jack stand. When I came back, the tire was on the ground and it had broken the bead, and that was the problem up there. I had to find a way to fix the problem, and that was by putting the strap around it. And then once I started airing up the tire, it made that strap incredibly tight. So when I finally released the strap, the thing went flying around. So certainly not the safest way of doing all of this. However, if you can prevent the bead from breaking, you'll be in really good shape. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. Really cool. I'm not going to do the front. I don't need to do the front, just the back, because it's going to help keep the back tires planted on the ground whenever I load the bucket up extra heavy. If I had to guess how much in terms of weight I've probably added, I would probably say maybe about 300 pounds. I don't think I added really all that much, but it's certainly better than nothing. It should certainly help. I think we'll find out next time we haul something heavy and we hook it up to the front, and we'll see how the back feels. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.